A tumultuous time in government that stretches from New York City to Washington, D.C. and back again. Congresswoman Nydia Velazquez is here to help us make sense of it. The Point starts right now. Congresswoman Nydia Velázquez has served in Congress since 1993. So, Congresswoman, you've been in Congress for over 30 years. Have you ever seen anything like what's transpired this past week between the Justice Department and Mayor Adams?
Definitely no. And this is very concerning for the DOJ to instruct the prosecutors who have all the evidence and who were ready to also indict him in some other, like obstruction of justice, instructing staff to destroy documentation. This is very concerning. And what really bothers me is the fact that the city of New York and New York needs to have transparency from the Department of Justice as to why and how they are dropping these charges. And we all have the answers. This is a pro quo for Donald Trump to be able to execute his mass deportation plan with total disregard to the status of immigrants in this country.
So are you really saying that Mayor Adams has made a deal with the devil?
Definitely. And they say, DOJ and Homan this morning, in another station, that they will come back to make sure that he's complying with the agreement. So this is wielding too much power and leverage over the mayor of the city of New York. How could we, his constituents, trust Mayor Adams when he knows that, you know, his life, his political life, depends on DOJ.
So let me ask you something. Does this compromise his ability to run the city?
Yes. First, the voters and the constituents of New York City, how could they trust a mayor that is politically so compromised? So how can you be sure that every decision he makes is based on the interests of the people of New York? I can't.
So what do you think should happen?
He should step down. You know, he is compromised. The people are not trusting him, and he should go. And what really bothers me is he claims that this was politically motivated because he criticized the president, Joe Biden.
Right.
And he was asking for federal funds. But you know what happened yesterday?
What?
Elon Musk and Trump, they grabbed $80 million that were appropriated to New York City. And so where is Mayor Adams criticizing Elon Musk and Donald Trump for taking this money that belongs to the people of New York?
Well, you bring up Elon Musk and you bring up the push by the president to have more efficiency in government. How do you feel about that? Do you think it's overreaching, or do you think that it plays to the American people's belief that government is too expensive?
Well, first, this is illegal, what they're doing. Is infringing in the power of Congress to authorize and appropriate funding for programs that we design. Two, how could you walk into an office and an agency and out of the blue say that we're going to take away X amount of money without making any assessment as to whether or not those programs are complying with the policies that we enacted, and with total disregard. this is basically targeting those agencies where they feel that, you know, they're using this as a way to punish agencies and people.
You know, I know that you protested at the Department of Education, and it's sort of interesting to me because during the campaign, there was a document called Plan 2025, which called for the elimination of the Department of Education. And during the campaign, the president said Plan 2025 was never going to happen, and now they want to eliminate the Department of Education. Is the Department of Education needed in this country, or is it extraneous, in your opinion?
No, it is needed. You know, if it wasn't for public education and to have a Department of Education that has focused on underserved communities and low-income communities, I would not be here sitting in front of you as a member of Congress. I come from a very poor family. 9 children growing up in Puerto Rico, and my father was a sugarcane worker, and here I am. Public education opened the door for me to be the first Puerto Rican woman ever to sit in the United States of Congress. And that is the opportunity that we owed every child in this country. You know how much money New York State is going to lose if this is just from Title I, $1.5 billion every year.
Wow.
Every year.
So what would be the effect on New York, in addition to the $1.5 billion, if they eliminate the Federal Department of Education?
It's going to be, look, with manpower, teachers, they will be fired.
Teachers will be fired?
Well, in the sense that if we don't have that type of money, so people will have to be let go. And
so how will we educate the kids?
Well, that's a good question. Look, you asked me a question before and you say, well, how do you answer the people that say that the government is bloated, right? And the same question was posed when people were campaigning against what they call Obamacare, until they discovered that the health care card that they have in their wallet was Obamacare, and that it played an important function in making sure that in the richest country in the world, people have the ability to access health care. And the same with public education. But it's not only public education. It's undermining and gutting a lot of agencies, Small Business Administration, EPA, so many federal agencies, without making the case as to the action that they're taking.
So I know that you care desperately about making sure that undocumented New Yorkers aren't unfairly rounded up by ICE agents. I wonder how you feel about the attack that they've just made on the green light law here in New York, which allows undocumented immigrants to get driver's licenses so they can actually work.
It's a great way to identify people. It's a great way to get people out of the shadow and be able to join the workforce and to go to hospitals and to schools and so on. But imagine when we talk about, and I said this to you before, this is a distraction. Everything that you're seeing now coming out of the Trump administration is to create this type of anxiety, is to get people to talk only about the actions that they're taking so that people are distracted from the real issues.
And the real issues are?
Inflation. Donald Trump made a commitment to the American people that on day one, he will drop prices down, that he will lower inflation. And here we are. The stats and the numbers came out yesterday. Inflation is on the rise. And all these actions that are happening, firing people, hundreds of thousands of people from the federal government, deporting over 1 million people a year. What do you think that is going to do to our economy? Prices are going to go up because the farmers will not have the workforce to be able to work in the farms.
We'll have to leave it right there for now, but our conversation continues right after the show on our streaming channel, CBS News New York. I went on a field trip this week to talk to Environmental Protection Administrator Lee Zeldin at the agency's regional office in Lower Manhattan. So the first thing I wanted to talk to you about, no surprise, is congestion pricing, because several members of Congress have written to the president saying that the environmental impact statement wasn't done properly. And also the governor of New Jersey has said the same thing. I wonder how you feel about it. I know you had strong feelings about it during the gubernatorial campaign, but now that you're in the Environmental Protection Agency, what are your thoughts about whether that study was done correctly or it needs to be done over?
Well, I've been on record with regards to the environmental impact of congestion pricing. My concerns, as I've expressed in the past, was seeing more truck traffic on the Staten Island Expressway or the Cross Bronx. Small cars traveling through side streets of Queens and Brooklyn to be able to find a new route where they would be able to avoid the pricing. As far as the Trump administration policy, that's something that would be a decision for the president, for me as administrator of EPA to work closely with the president on it and be helpful however I possibly can in implementing his policy priorities here. There's no secret where I have stood on congestion pricing and the impact on New Yorkers. I think a lot of other people, including the congressional delegation, have been outspoken, not only on your point, as it relates to the environmental impact study, but on the economic side of things. And I think that the Trump mandate nationally, what does it mean? What happened on November 5th? I think you had a lot of Americans who maybe they voted Democrat in the past, maybe they didn't even vote for President Trump last time, but they have concerns on particular issues where they feel like they haven't been represented, they feel like they've been ignored. And on the economic front, a lot of people voted for President Trump to be concerned about these pocketbook issues. So for the Trump administration, this is a decision that for the President Trump to make and for us to implement. But the opinions out there, present company excluded, are quite strong.
The reason I was asking is because I also know that the governor of New Jersey was worried about the environmental impact, which he says was not studied in New Jersey. And I know that they would probably call on you and your agency to look at that and to see if the traffic coming in through the tunnels and in the communities like Fort Lee and the other communities were properly studied, and would you be called upon to investigate it again?
I think it's a really great point for us to understand that congestion pricing isn't just an issue for New York. And we've heard this concern coming out of New Jersey where they feel like their voices haven't been heard. I served in the House of Representatives with Congressman Josh Gottheimer, for example. Democratic congressman, I was a Republican congressman, but on many issues we found ourselves aligned. This was certainly one of them. And it wasn't a loyalty test to him for party. It was something that transcended partisanship. It was something about fighting for your constituents. So from the governor of New Jersey, who's a Democrat, to a congressional delegation that includes many Democrats, they have been outspoken saying, let's put politics aside. Let's view it on the merit. They feel like they have been left behind. That's a nice way of putting it. I've heard some choicer words used. And I think it is important to be factoring in those impacts, both environmental and economic.
So you've only been in office a couple of weeks, but already you have proposed something called Powering the Great American Comeback, and part of it is for energy dominance. What are you going to do about that? What do you mean by energy dominance, and what does the United States have to do to accomplish that?
I have long supported an all-of-the-above approach to energy, and there is a need for Americans to be able to have choice, to choose how they want to power their home or their business, what kind of car that they want to drive. And there have been a lot of suffocating regulations seeking to get rid of all forms, including domestic, coal to natural gas and more, to move to certain forms of energy that if you play it out in your head, if you rush to hit some of the dates that they have set, even with the best argument that any of them can come up on the merits, the problem is that it's impacting adversely the people who can least afford it, as they see their electricity bills go up or the cost to do business ends up going up. There's a lot of concern amongst Americans that they feel like the direction of energy policy is not heading in the right way. And I'll say from an environmental standpoint, the United States of America is doing this exceptionally when you compare us to so many other countries around the world. We tap into American innovation and we provide energy better than so many others elsewhere overseas. So we need to look at it from that economic standpoint, which Americans were very loud and outspoken about on November 5th. We also have to look at it from the environmental standpoint and not cut ourselves short. Emissions reductions have been going down. When regulations are passed, we have to do them smart. What do Americans demand? They say common sense. Let's be pragmatic. They also want to be represented. They want to be fought for. And what so many of them are advocating for is the position, hey, if you want to go get an electric vehicle, go get an electric vehicle. That's your choice. I respect that. But I want to get a gas-powered vehicle, so you should respect that. And it's come into conflict. And in a place like New York, for example, where they've banned hookups of gas stoves to new construction, Governor Hochul had signed off on a regulation to get rid of gas-powered vehicles. They won't allow any extraction of natural gas in the southern tier. These are all policies that have quite an impact adversely, not just on the state, but our nation.
So also part of your policy is that you want to deal with AI and you want the country to be dominant in the AI. How does that figure into EPA?
We have to be the capital of the world. Well, there's a demand. So as it relates to becoming energy dominant, another pillar is to make the United States of America the AI capital of the world. Now, some people are pretty freaked out about AI.
Are you?
There's a lot of it that seems to be quite new, and you just don't know. We are entering into the unknown. However, this is what I know, and gives me full confidence in being sure that we have to fight to become the AI capital of the world. Is that if we just sit back, if we go on our heels, and we just allow this to go and set its own course globally, China is going to be the AI capital of the world.
And we can't allow that to happen?
We can't allow it to happen on so many fronts. You have the national security front, economic, technology, healthcare, and so much more. I want America to be the AI capital of the world. To do that, it's going to require more of a supply for energy capacity.
Renewable energy or regular or gas, oil, what?
It's going to require a lot more capacity of different forms. And there's going to be plants that would require more electricity to be able to conduct their operations. And you can't be drastically reducing that electric consumption capability, or not forward thinking and expanding it, and at the same time ramping up to be the AI capital of the world. Right now, the goals that have been set in some of these states without the forward thinking and the long-term planning has put us on a path where we're not going to be able to generate the energy capacity to be able to compete. And we have to start thinking further ahead, and certainly be thinking further than the next election. We need to be thinking way into the future.
Lee Zeldin, thank you so much for joining me.
Marcia.
And thank you at home for joining us as well. We'll be right back. Thank you for joining me. We're talking housing. Do we need more? Where should it be? New Yorkers are weighing in on your point. Do you think New York City needs more housing?
Yes.
Yes, I do.
Oh, yes.
Absolutely. Yes, it does. I think it, especially for affordable housing.
Loaded question.
Young people can't get in. Everybody has to live together, crunched in. There's just not enough affordable housing.
And I live in affordable housing, and I think other people need it as well.
No, not really.
Why not?
I know I have an apartment. You know, I'm not really a wealthy person.
I mean, honestly, there's a lot of housing, but it's not very affordable.
We've lost all the interesting little places, shops, bars, whatever, restaurants, and then you've got expensive housing. And yeah, it's just not as interesting, as complex as it used to be.
In terms of building new housing, I mean, where are they going to build it?
With all the construction and stuff going on, especially in Manhattan, sometimes I joke with my friends saying, you know, Manhattan is going to sink because if they put anything else on top, it's going to sink.
What do you think about the idea of rezoning Midtown Manhattan so that more residential buildings can be built there?
I think it's a good idea.
I think that would be wonderful.
That would be kind of cool.
I think there's a lot of commercial space that could be refigured.
I mean, there's a lot of empty apartments. Landlords are sitting on them.
What do you think about rezoning Midtown Manhattan so that there could be more residential buildings?
I think that's a very good idea. I think there's a lot of waste in Midtown Manhattan.
A lot of space?
There's a lot of space. You can see that there's a lot of space that's unused.
Why not use these spaces? If you walk through Midtown, there's a lot of empty buildings.
Do you think if we build more apartments, it'll reduce, bring down the cost of rent?
I mean, I would think so, theoretically. Yeah.
You know what? I'm always hopeful, but time will tell.
You tell me. I have no idea. I hope so. It should. It should be affordable housing. I know my nephew and my nieces are grateful for it, and you can't get into the city.
Probably not. Ideally, yes, but I don't think that's going to happen.
Will building more housing bring down the cost of rent?
I doubt it.
Why not?
Because I think it's kind of a rigged game, and I just think rents are kind of never coming down.